What's up, brother?
You know, in Miami, feeling it, loving it.
The Gonzo's back.
Yeah, I'm in full form right now.
Full form.
Full form may be an overstatement. Very sleep deprived after 2 days with no more than 4 hours of sleep in total, but otherwise doing great.
Well, I'm with the anomaly himself, Jeremy Gardner, for those that know him. Jeremy has a wide background from the OG crypto days, Augur, Blockchain Capital, Awesome Ventures, and so much more, and has gone on since to keep entering new industries from men's skincare to psychedelics. So today, Jeremy, I want to dive into a lot of interesting things with you because I think you're such a multifaceted person.
Mm-hmm.
But let's first start off for the people that maybe don't know you, that might be new to crypto. Believe it or not, there's people that are new to crypto that might not have Jeremy Gardner. You know,
I assume most people are new to crypto. I still have to ask people, or it's actually this horrible kind of ingrained response where I tell people I invest in Bitcoin and blockchain technology, if you know what that is. Because for so long, the expectations was that people did it, and now all of a sudden everyone's like, of course I do. Well, I was like, 2 years ago, did you? I've been doing this for a while.
Right. And what is a while for you? I think you started 2015, 2014?
No, so I first discovered Bitcoin in 2011 because they wrote about it in Rolling Stone. They were in their hot issue, the hot black market, Amazon.com was the Silk Road, and I thought that was awesome. I thought Bitcoin was dumb. So that part of my journey is relatively unimportant, but it was late 2013 when the price started going up, and I had some money I was making at the time. I bought in at like $100, saw it go up to $1,000, thought it was a scam. You know, it was good for buying drugs on the internet, speculative pump and dump asset, sold it, and then ended up transferring to the University of Michigan that winter, and living with just a real Bitcoin believer who convinced me to read the white paper, and suddenly everything clicked where, coming from an unconventional crypto background, I was very liberal. You know, I had been at Occupy Wall Street, worked in politics.
Not guns and carbo diet?
No. and so I ended up looking at Bitcoin from the lens of, we need a new financial system because trying to regulate or fix the current one won't work, and it won't empower the disenfranchised around the world that don't have access to traditional banking. And I saw Bitcoin, because that's really all there was at the time, being the solution. And so, you know, the white paper really opened my eyes. I read a lot of Vitalik's writing in Bitcoin magazine. There were very scant resources back then.
Which
Charles
was good and bad too.
Had a Udemy course where, you know, with stick figures, and that's kind of how I came to learn Bitcoin and blockchain technology as it's come to be known.
It's fascinating because, you know, nowadays there's a flood of information where it's like keeping up with crypto. You know, I have a full analyst team, and it's still it's a full-time job for many people to keep up. Back in those days, I mean, even, you know, when I first started the fund, in 2 hours a day, I could pretty much keep up. You know, because, you know, back in that era, you know, you would read articles by, let's say,
back in that era. It was news if Bitcoin was in the news. Like if like Bloomberg mentioned Bitcoin or the economists mentioned Bitcoin, just like one word, massive deal. Like, you know, like when Bitcoin was in an episode of The Good Wife,
I remember,
back in, I think, 2013, that's what caused it to rally up to $100 for the first time. It was just mentioned. I mean, very, you know, it was very limited what was going on.
So then, and you decided to take it further. I know when you're in college, you started blockchain education, the
blockchain education network,
correct, Ben. And then how did you get into Augur? Because I know you also helped co-fund Augur.
Yeah, so the blockchain education network stemmed out of the fact that I was excited about crypto, learned there was Bitcoin clubs at MIT, Stanford, and Michigan where I was. So I had brought them all together, and we're creating resources and educating ourselves, because back then there were no college courses, there were no books. Yeah. It was just very light reading. You had to be pretty fucking nerdy to like really appreciate the gravity of what blockchain technology could do. Because blockchain technology back then, reminder, wasn't even a term yet. That didn't come around until 2015 or so. But I met a brilliant 18-year-old computer scientist who had started a Bitcoin club at Pomona, Joey Krug, and it was so funny. I mean, we're totally different people, and I knew that right away. Just he's, kind of a geeky, computer guy, and I was, kind of party boy, ventureful, but I wouldn't even call myself anywhere near an entrepreneur at that point. But we had chemistry, and it was very clear. And we were talking about startup ideas, and we ended up deciding to build a startup together in the summer of 2014. I was at the University of Michigan working on the blockchain education network, and we started working on a point of sale startup for crypto, because all point of sale systems were switching over to the chip and dip system, and it seemed like an opportunity to integrate Bitcoin and crypto and to create seamless transactions. And we created the first ever sound-based payment transaction. Well, Joey did. It was very cool. Anyway, we got interest, especially from my soon who would become my colleague, Brock Pierce, and Joey was ready to take a leave of absence from school, which in other words it's dropping out. I was not. I had battled my entire life to just like get close to achieving something, which was like graduating from college, and it had been a tremendous struggle, and as fate would have it, everything fell into place where all of a sudden I had to choose between going back to school and leaving everything that I was doing in crypto due to a mess up on the university's part, or going all in on Bitcoin and blockchain technology. Joey had already made the decision, and made the decision easy enough for me. And God bless her soul, the dean of the Honors College at University of Michigan encouraged me to take a leave of absence, which was the highlight of my academic career.
Did you touch base with her afterwards? But like,
no, I wrote her a letter. I don't even know if I even ever sent it. I gave a lecture at Michigan a few years ago, and I stopped by her office, but she wasn't there. I definitely owe her one.
That's awesome. Sweet. So that's kind of like how it led from 2014, beginnings of Augur, and then I guess your life changed pretty rapidly in 2015, 16, 17. I mean, I remember I was actually, you were on stage, I think it was January 2018, the North American Bitcoin Conference, that New York Times article just hit, but like I was in the audience watching you. So, it's been a really weird where you were the poster child of crypto. So how did that kind of phase, I guess on one hand play out?
Poster child for at least crypto's nouveau riche, but yeah, it was an experience. So what's the question?
Well, the question was, so you've gone, like at the time, 2014, 15, you said like, there was only, you would learn through forums, blog posts, like it was very, very nerdy, very niche.
Reddit was huge.
Reddit.
It's so crazy. I don't use Reddit at all anymore. I haven't for years. But back then, like, our Bitcoin was the place.
That was
like,
the source.
Like that's where people were all the time. If you like that was like where like glory was found in the world of Bitcoin was on our Bitcoin.
So then, like, how did that evolve over time? Was it just like step by step, or did you see like there was a one point in time where you said, hey, this industry has really changed, it's matured, it's, I guess, to one degree matured, but also I think that the soul of crypto is certainly like altered because there's a lot of new entrants.
So I've tried to play the part of a sociologist in my time and role in this industry, simply because I didn't think enough people were taking that sort of sociological, anthropological perspective of what was happening with what we were doing, because I knew it was here to stay. Well, at least by, I'd say, 2016 or so, it was pretty unambiguous. When I dropped out of college, I told my parents, there's maybe a 5-10% chance that Bitcoin's successful, but if it is, and I don't drop out of school, I'll never forgive myself. And so I had to deal with my parents not forgiving me for about 6-12 months. But thank God it wasn't the other way around, because I would have never forgiven myself for that. But, you know, beginning, I want to say probably in 2016 at the North American Bitcoin Conference here in Miami, I gave my first overview, the kind of past, present, and future of crypto assets, and it's so funny how I thought about these things. These talks, like the evolution of crypto assets and blockchain technology, are all on YouTube in various forms. I'm not a great speaker. And no, I wasn't drunk. If everyone always thinks I'm drunk. I just talk funny. Anyway, I really stand by a lot of what I said in the early days. It was that the earliest days, call it 2008-9. To 2011-12, that was just like the nerds, the libertarians, a few poker players. It was just an idea. It was just a thought. But then the Silk Road happened, and that really was so important. It gave Bitcoin utility, and a really instructive use case where it kind of laid out all the arguments for and against Bitcoin right there. It was like there was this like incredibly strong libertarian ethos. They weren't allowing the selling of weapons or like child pornography on the website. It was all about like peer review, like drugs, so people could actually have higher quality drugs, and it was a genuinely free market. It was very fascinating, and definitely what initially attracted me to Bitcoin, even though I didn't like Bitcoin itself. But then the way that Ross got taken down, and how the FBI agents got caught trying to steal the Bitcoin, showed how auditable and immutable the blockchain is, and how it's not this great tool for criminality. It's a great tool for freedom. It's actually not a great tool for criminality. But with the rise of Silk Road, you have the emergence of a Wild West era, which led to folks like my friend Charlie Shrem, who just rise and fall, and Mt. Gox imploding. And even I'd say the ICO era was really part of that Wild West, retrospectively. Yep. My old presentations didn't have that much foresight, but the ICOs were really kind of Wild West. And I think you zoom out enough, you'd say even today is still NFTs the Wild
feel
West.
A lot like
the ICOs. NFTs, this point in time where the ability to create new speculative assets out of the ether, pun intended, is game changing in a lot of ways, and I think it will measurably make the world a better place, but at the same time it invites a lot of shit. And everyone wants to get rich quick. Everyone wants to be a millionaire. I mean, everyone wants to be, famous. And crypto has become this vehicle for people to generate wealth for themselves on a scale of innocuous to insidious to terrible, but it's a compelling way for folks to try to build capital quickly. And technology is morally ambiguous. It's not shocking, but it's definitely exhausting for someone like me that does see the positive potential of the tech. But I'd say when Gox went down, crypto crashed, crypto had a real branding issue. It was Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was a bad word. Banks wouldn't touch it. Nobody wanted anything to do with it. And so a few management consultants were called up by several executives in the industry, and there was a dinner I was at where it was established that we were going to start referring to this industry as blockchain technology.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was formalized like that?
Yeah, it was really, it was like, we need to shift the narrative.
Yeah.
And the narrative shifted. That was all it took. It was, and all of a sudden, all these banks that had Bitcoin, like kind of ventures or like were exploring Bitcoin and had canceled it because of Gox and all the negativity.
Blockchain technology.
They were like, we're blockchain, not Bitcoin, and then things got very interesting because suddenly you had large enterprises, some of the biggest companies in the world, starting to really dip their toes in at that time around 2015, 2016. Executives, financiers, becoming, real maximalists, real believers, and founders and investors in this space, and it started to mature very quickly, and when getting up to the point you mentioned earlier, where I was, on the cover of the New York Times Style section and on the Bloomberg and Forbes and Business Insider and ABC Nightline, I came to this realization that this industry was maturing much faster than I was. I was maturing in human years, and I call
Jeremy years.
And I don't think my personal maturation is that different than most adults, but I was 26 at the time. I was 27. I was a kid, and I was being put on this pedestal that I never asked to be on. Yeah. I wanted to evangelize this technology. I didn't want to get rich. I didn't want to tell people be responsible for people's wealth being made, and there was a tremendous amount of responsibility I felt, because the narrative around the articles being written about me by late 2017, early 2018. They were about the money, and I never had been about the money. And suddenly, people were getting inspired to get into crypto because of me. But for all the wrong reasons. That was not the gospel I was trying to preach. And so I took a long and very intentional step back from media in that evangelist position. Simply because I didn't feel like I was as much needed anymore. One, I had established myself in crypto, and two, I was able to do more behind the scenes where I was much more comfortable. And so I have it, I obviously did a big keynote last summer with Tony Hawk at the Bitcoin conference, from 90,000 people or whatever, 100,000 people, but it was kind of, that was about Tony. That was me saying, look at this guy. And that was what the conversation was about. Was how subcultures go mainstream, and that was very interesting. It was very intellectual. But I don't know, the poster child thing. It was just I relate to all these celebrities that joined the 27 Club, like, and die early. So like, and I didn't have a modicum of their fame. It was a lot.
A lot. Well, let me ask you this then. Since there are, there's this irony that we have actually a lot of young people make it in crypto. They reach a lot of success, and then there's also
success or money.
Those are two different things, but a lot of times they get the combination of the two, I would say. Okay. Well, there's success, there's money, then there's also happiness. I've also seen a lot of young
I've seen a lot of young people get rich. I've not seen a lot of young people in crypto be successful.
How do you define success?
Success is the ability to uplift those around you.
Mm-hmm.
So are you actually building something that people are using?
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing good in the world? Are you elevating people? Are you, a pillar of
mm-hmm.
whatever community you're in?
Right.
That to me is success. Making money, making a few $1 million off Dogecoin is not being successful.
Of course. Well, I think, part of it might be that so many of them, they make it so fast, and it's almost overwhelming, where you're like, like you said, you were put in that shoes of the poster child, so to say, and you're like, I didn't ask, but I didn't know how to handle that. I've seen a lot of young crypto investors make tremendous amounts of money, and there's almost like an identity crisis where they're like, wow, like my life changed so much, at least, monetarily, financially, in the last, 12 months, and I don't know how to deal with that problem.
Yeah, I feel bad for them. I feel bad for anyone that gets rich quickly, and because there's no way to deal with it. I mean, I grew up in a comfortable middle-class family. My dad was a professor. My mom works at a nonprofit. We were comfortable, but I didn't know how to deal with that sort of money. But what was good for me, and you saw this, was that like I never did it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the money came, it didn't change anything for me. I didn't change anything about my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I still lived in the same house. I still did all the same things. I didn't spend more money. I just reinvested it, and
at least in the early years, and because then the crypto castle. So people now might see crypto castle Jeremy. They're like, I want that, and then they associate that.
It's scaled up slowly over time, but I think it took me almost half a decade to begin to appreciate the money I have and not have imposter syndrome about it.
Right.
Pretty much all the money I made was going back into startups, into philanthropy. I really didn't indulge. I know I was like Bitcoin's party boy, but I wasn't paying for any of that stuff. People. That was a good thing. It was like what Dan Bilzerian does. He doesn't pay for any of that stuff. He's because people want to be around that. It actually was a very cheap lifestyle. Although it appearing to be expensive, but I spent very little of the money I've made on anything beyond things that I see as investments.
So then I'm asking, there's probably a number of 20-something-year-olds that are watching this, and they say, hey, look, I love crypto, I believe in it fundamentally, but of course I also wouldn't mind making some money, being able to do this full time at the very least, being able to work here in this industry supports me. You've seen a lot of people enter the space in the last half decade at this point, right? What would you say to the people have in common that made it in this industry and those that didn't? That have built something meaningful, so we can not just monetarily define success.
So what are you asking?
The question is, you probably have met more founders in the crypto space than most people. What do you think have the ones that actually build something meaningful have in common?
They're not trying to get rich. That's the thing. Like, if you're doing it to make money, you may get rich. Like a lot of people have gotten rich in crypto, trying to get rich. But you look at Vitalik, the purest, most wonderful human being, just on the cover of Time magazine, was literally sleeping on my couch in San Francisco when he was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, had all of his belongings in the world fit in one like Hello Kitty duffel bag. Like, he's the guy, like wow. Like, and he's gonna be one of the most important people of this century, if not in the history of humanity. I mean, Tom Brady called him the GOAT.
And he's like, I don't know who this Tom Brady guy is.
Tom Brady called him the GOAT in response to Vitalik saying, I don't know who Tom Brady is. Like, do you realize how great you have to be for one of the undisputed goats of goats to call you the GOAT when you kind of dismiss him? Like, oh my God. So, like, that's what it takes. I mean, that's what it takes. Is like Vitalik and I, like it's similar to my relationship with Joey, but Vitalik's obviously like on
a level of his own.
Yeah, another level. But it's this commonality and seeing the value of the technology that you envision being brought to the world and doing something good with it. And that's what I always find is so important. Making money is great, but you have to see where your impact is going to be felt. If you don't see where the impact is going to be felt, it's very unlikely you're truly going to find great success. And it can evolve with time. I don't think Travis Kalanick ever thought Uber would become what it was when he started the company. But he grew into the vision and constantly aspired to build something great. And I think a lot of folks in crypto aspire to build what is enough. Is this gonna make money? Is this gonna get the investors
good enough to go to like a $500 million valuation?
Exactly, and it's sad. But it's the nature of an open source market that is so lucrative.
So since you do a lot of investing too, you had, I think you just, congratulations, right? You said you wrapped up Awesome Ventures. That was.
Well, I bought out all my LPs. Yeah.
You bought all your LPs, right? And you guys had awesome return. I think 4.5 MOC or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Just under 5x.
Just under 5x, including some projects that a lot of people know, like Filecoin.
Yeah, and like 3.5 years. But it was mostly, to be transparent, it was mostly through the crypto positions we had taken and held. But what we did was, several of our portfolio companies were marked up or are marked up, and I've always had this cognitive, a bit of a tangent, but I've had this cognitive dissonance about my crypto wealth. It's hard to feel it's well deserved. Like, I look at the way that you have gone and built out your kind of investing firm, and like you've really worked. But like I was in a lot of the right places at a lot of the right times, and I made a lot of money, and I definitely had an impact. I'm not suggesting that, but I definitely have always, for a long time, struggled with the amount of wealth I made, and wasn't interested in that being my legacy. And so I, have constantly sought to just reinvest. Like I said, I've lived actually quite frugally over the past 6 or so years since I became a multimillionaire virtually overnight. And I have constantly reinvested and, don't want really much of my wealth in the future to come from crypto. I feel like that was great, and I think there's so much upside in crypto, and I think if I put all my money in crypto, it's probably one of the best places I could do it, but I don't want to do that. I want to make my money doing other things that I think I can be more impactful.
Well, originally what I was trying to get at with the fund investments was, like that is do you filter for those kind of mindsets in your founders? Like that.
Austin Ventures was a social impact fund.
Okay.
So we were focused on that intersection of blockchain technology, crypto assets, and social impact. And absolutely. I mean, I won't.
Is it just a feeling you have when you talk to a founder that you're like, okay, he's in it for the right thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't. I'll say top 10 market cap crypto.
Yeah.
Met the founder. He was still at the large Fortune 500 tech company he was at. Was planning to create this new blockchain. Sounded great. He sounded like he had the tech chops. He was an asshole, and I really just didn't like it. Like, he sounded really smart. He wanted me to invest. He knew who I was at the time. This must have been 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And don't.
I'm not saying it.
No, we're not doing this. But I just thought he was an asshole, and I never followed up with him. It's now, like I said, a top 10 crypto. Would have made an ungodly amount for myself and my fund. Don't regret it for a second. And you could call it a miss, but
Well, listen, I feel you. There's so many times I like loudly speak out against tokens, like whether it's the Shiba Inus or even stuff like that's more insidious in my eyes, like a Ripple or a Cardano, where I'm like, hey, you're presenting, like, you're fooling people into believing something while not building anything of value. And it makes everybody look bad. It makes the industry look bad. It sets us back. And so, like, I think it's okay to have these misses if you stand for something, like if you actually believe in this industry long term. Whether it's this industry or another industry, like there's so many times when you can cut corners either as a builder or as an investor. And yes, you make profit, that's great, but you fucking ruin something that's great in the process.
Yeah. And I feel very strongly about that. I don't want to support people that I don't think are going to make the world better. It doesn't matter how much money I can make. And I don't want to live. I don't want to have demons. I go to bed at night. Sometimes, stressed about work, but never stressed about have I done the right thing. I never have to question that, because I always try to do the right thing, and that's all you can strive for. And then investing is no different. I mean, most great investors will tell you there's no morality in investing. You just invest. But I don't believe that. I believe you should invest. Or I want to only invest in technology, people, ideas that make the world better.
Yeah, and I think
and that can be incredibly lucrative.
Right, and I think it actually aligns with the timing when you enter industries for you specifically, because I've had this thought too one night where I was thinking, like, honestly, like, investors, we're kind of just riding the coattails of successful founders, and like with or without our money, they will succeed because great founders will fucking win. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when I look at the industries you invest in, and this is kind of how we can like segue too, because you're somebody that I found repeatedly now, not always but repeatedly, invest into what I call the gray zones, like when things are still questioned. Like crypto, when you first started, was highly questioned, right? Now you just recently started Mystic Ventures, which invests into psychedelics, still highly questioned in several states. The legality
it's federally Schedule 1. It's the same as heroin. Yeah.
Right, and the same, like, so whether it's Silk Road, where people said like,
but you don't want to talk about skincare here.
We can talk about skincare too. No, so skincare.
I'm just giving you a hard time because it what you're talking about, the skincare just falls right into it. It's the fact that guys don't take care of their skin for one reason only, is because they're not taught to growing up, even though 100% of women take care of their skin. Men do not. We all have skin.
This is not all natural.
No, I take care of you. I know that. but your skin is something you should take care of. It's the majority of a first impression, and yet there's these stigmas and the lack of education, and in that stigma. And in that lack of awareness, there's an opportunity. It is a gray zone. It's not perhaps a legal gray zone, but it is a gray zone nonetheless. I mean, because gray zones are where the opportunities are.
That's the thing. It's where the opportunities, but I think also that other word you really that you really associate with is legacy, where you actually make an impact.
Yeah.
Like you starting Mystic Ventures can have an actual measurable effect on which direction it can go domestically, which companies succeed or fail. Because the truth is, in those early stages, whether it's crypto or psychedelics, those companies really need support because there's so few people backing. Once something is crowded and everybody wants to throw money, whether you do it or someone else doesn't matter.
Yeah, like it's so weird to me that someone wants to invest in a company that Sequoia already invested in. I always love when the companies I invest in get backed by Sequoia after I invest in them. I'm like, that's cool, but like, who cares?
And then you're like, my job is done here.
Yeah. My job's done. Like, exactly. And that's kind of how I felt with crypto, was that it was like, all right, like pretty much most of the impact I can have here is done. Now I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, of course, but in front, I'm the less necessary presence. But in psychedelics, it's not true. Psychedelics needs champions. Psychedelics needs people that, by whatever measure of success you use for myself, you can say this guy has done well. He's in the eyes of society, and he's talking about psychedelics and destigmatizing their deeply healing and impactful potential. And I feel like I'm in crypto in 2014. I feel like I have an understanding of something that much of the world does not, in that my activism, whether it's investing, entrepreneurship, or spokesmanship, all of that can be used to actually shape and the path that this emerging nascent industry goes into. My ability to shape the path that crypto takes now is very negligible.
It's diminished, yeah.
Back in 2014, it was outsized for a 22-year-old, 23-year-old.
If you have the right meeting, you bring the right person to crypto.
I could spend hours telling you how the small things I did have had these massive impacts on effectively the world at this point, and that's what I strive for in life. And so that's why I'm doing the psychedelic stuff. But psychedelics also are just a huge part of my life. That's something life-saving. I wouldn't have gotten into crypto without them. I wouldn't have got, made the decisions I made in my professional career without psychedelics. And so it's very personal to me. And I think, there's the Japanese concept of ikigai, which is the perfect formula for living a fulfilled life. And it's not just about your work or your job, but it's also about what the world needs and what you can get paid for. And it's just this great concept. And
things like doing what you love, that you're good at,
what you're good is what you're good at, what you love, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs. And if you can find that intersectionality, which many people will not find in their careers, and you don't need to. You just need to have some basic sense of fulfillment in what you're doing. But you need to find that in your life. You need to and I'm in a position of tremendous privilege where I can say nothing I do should misalign with my ikigai.
So tell me a little bit more about Mystic Ventures now. Perhaps maybe not the Mystic Ventures part, but some of the experiences you've had. I think even I and I'm a lot more buttoned up than you. Like people could see me as conservative, but really like I've had psychedelic experiences and I think they've been really impactful in my life. And even though there's still a taboo, I think that taboo has been like reducing quite a bit, especially if you're a little bit more liberal city like Los Angeles where I used to be. How do you see psychedelics being integrated into normal life when they're still supposed to be, as the name suggests, a mystic experience? Like, they're not supposed to be used recreationally. Or maybe you disagree.
I mean, look. Like two Saturdays ago, I ate a bunch of mushrooms with the girl that I'm seeing and went on a hike and with my dog and just had the best time, and it was just such a beautiful, romantic, like bonding experience. And it was totally recreational.
Mm-hmm.
There was I mean, you could say it was personal growth, it was a relationship growth,
Mm-hmm.
but like I wasn't working anything out. Like I rarely use psychedelics anymore to work things out. I'm at a point in my life where most of that wisdom that psychedelics have to show me in terms of my personal growth, they've showed me. It's just now I need to act on it, because psychedelics don't solve your problems; they just show you what your problems actually are. And so, but I think in a response, like you look at in Amsterdam, and you eat those truffle chocolates and just ride around on bikes and do it recreationally. I think we're far away from that, and I think American culture is just terrible for recreational mushrooms. People will just start driving their cars. It will be terrible. Like I don't think probably America can ever have recreational psychedelic mushrooms. Maybe like legal retreat spaces where you can eat mushrooms and have fun and just not kill yourself, but or others. But that's so far ways away. But it's such a practical medicine. First of all, it's there's this thing called the stone date theory, where scientists still aren't exactly sure how we went from kind of monkeys to modern Homo sapiens, like developed thought and consciousness and self-awareness. And there's a compelling argument that we ate mushrooms, and we needed to vocalize what we were experiencing during these psychedelic experiences, and then we developed language as a result. Whether or not that's true, we know that for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, and in many of the most mainstream religions, psychedelics have been consumed in various forms, and that's because they're transformational substances that are, yes, they're medicines that they can heal, but that's the first step of psychedelics, and that's where I'm mostly focused today, is on the healing, and it's why I love having a venture fund in this space, because no one in this space, like in Silicon Valley or in crypto, says we're going to change the world. Everyone said, or we're going to make a lot of money. That's more of a crypto thing. But we're people say in psychedelics is we're healing the world. And I love that. And that's true, because the first part of psychedelic medicine or psychedelic substances is, in order for you to truly enjoy them and perhaps use them recreationally, you first have to heal from, because they're going to show you your wounds. Psychedelics don't give you what you want; they give you what you need, and it's often working through healing, trauma, pain, roadblocks in your life, and if that's all that psychedelics are ever able to accomplish, great. Like, let's fucking send it, and let's reschedule them and get them to market, because we know empirically with about a half dozen of these substances that the impact on treating a whole host of mental illnesses such as depression, trauma, PTSD, sexual dysfunction, like things like even Alzheimer's and strokes. I mean, the list goes on and on. The results that we're getting with psychedelics are 10x any drug on the market, because it does something different than what any other drug does, which is it reconfigures or reprograms your brain in how it reacts to certain problems that your body interacts with, or your brain interacts with.
How are they able to, are the tests being done in other countries, or?
No, they're being done here. The FDA allows you, even if something's a Schedule I narcotic, if a doctor can make a compelling argument, beginning with lab studies in rats, that that this could actually, like, heroin cures AIDS. Like, if someone could actually prove that in a scientific manner, that's how the FDA system works. You start with animal studies. We start with thesis, and then eventually with animal studies, and then if you get the approvals, then you do small human control groups, and then you begin to scale up. It's the same thing with psychedelics. But what I'll say is that the FDA and the U.S. government more broadly, in terms of the fact that they're now writing grants, are incredibly receptive to psychedelics. It's a brave new world right now because we have a few really compounding factors. We have a massive, raging mental health crisis, exacerbated deeply by the pandemic and by social media, and by the fracturing of civil society as a result of the web, and how that affects politics and such. And so there's that one big factor, and then things like teen suicide and depression, and people care about children, and then there are veterans. We're coming out of 20 years of war, and we have a generation of traumatized citizens that are not getting the treatment that they need, and that's the most bipartisan issue there is. And then we have a big pharma, which nobody really likes. Their way of helping people is through this Band-Aid methodology, where you're constantly spending money and going more and more for treatment, but you're not actually healing.
Correct.
And so these are not politicized matters that I just discussed. These are kind of generally accepted truths, and it affects every single person in America, and broadly in the world. And so there is, when the science is as compelling as the studies that have come out in the past 8 or 9 years, is where it's literally 10x efficacy in treating something like post-traumatic stress or depression, or suicidal ideation. There's not enough momentum in the other direction, if any, to prevent the FDA from giving these drugs or substances breakthrough status, expediting their studies, and it's happening so fast. I mean, I think we're going to see legalized MDMA and psilocybin, at least for medicinal usage, at a federal level before we see it for cannabis, because the results are so outstanding.
Really? What time frame do you think? Like, are we talking like
2 to 3 years?
Oh wow, that's
a max. Because the way it works with FDA trials is, if you say, hey, I'm treating mushrooms for depression, or treating PTSD with MDMA, and you get through stage 3 trials with the FDA and they approve your results, the DEA then has a 45-day window to reschedule the substance. And then within those 45 days, it has to be scheduled 3 or 4 or unscheduled, although I don't know if that's ever happened before. And so that means that, and now both MDMA and psilocybin are in stage 3 trials, and they're going to get approval, and they're going to get rescheduled.
And also just think of like how much extra damage the illegal market does, because like so many times people buy, let's say they think they're buying MDMA, but then it's laced or something like that. Like
yes, MDMA, sure. That's,
of course, hard to so
that's an issue.
mushrooms.
Psychedelics have less of an issue in the black market. They're just not as lucrative of markets. But
legalization.
More importantly, psychedelics are not the silver bullets. A lot of evangelists will make them out to be.
Okay.
They're tools. Just like a blockchain isn't a silver bullet to any problem. These are tools that are means to an end. and they give you their tools that provide you with the information that you need to do the work yourself that you may not otherwise have. But that's it, and that requires instruction and guidance and integration and preparation, and that's what makes it so important. I'm not convinced that recreational, like I said earlier, recreational psychedelics in America, I don't think they're probably a good idea. Like maybe slightly infused, like microdoses are fine. I think like a slightly mushroom infused drink or cocktail, totally chill. Like LSD microdose, once again, cool. Ketamine has all of them, but MDMA. But what's really important is that if we want to heal the world, as a lot of the proponents of psychedelics say, and more importantly, evolve humanity's consciousness, which is the thesis behind Mystic Ventures, my fund, is the elevation of consciousness. We need to have a deeply integrative approach to psychedelics, where individuals have the tools that they need to make the most of the experience, and it's not just getting high or seeing some crazy shit.
That's right. All of those can be fun too. But now this is awesome. Learned a lot from today's talk. I mean, from the earlier parts, we talked about how the best founders in crypto, they went out there for the money. Keeping in mind the Vitaliks of the world, and if you're driven by just the money, you're probably not going to make it that far. And then in terms of Mystic Ventures, really seeing the parallels now where both back in crypto, the banks will never allow it. Now people say, FOMO might not allow it, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. In my eyes,
if it's truly better and we can prove it, it will happen. Then that is the great beauty of the internet, is that the information flows very freely, and it's Pandora's box, and the internet may be the downfall of modern civilization, but to give it credit, it ensures that the best ideas have the best chance of winning.
Yeah, and that's even in the age of social media, where people say there's
disinformation and misinformation.
But ultimately, if ideas always find a way to come across. So what's the best way for people to find out more about you, keep in touch with you and your ventures? For all the dudes, of course, get MadeMan.
Yeah, try out our skincare, but I think just following me on Twitter is easy. Disruptopreneur, but you can just look up Jeremy Gardner, although I'm trying to change my handle to my Instagram handle, which is Gonzo Gardner.
Gonzo Gardner.
It has some consistency there. Just got the trademark for that, actually.
You got Gonzo Gardner?
Yeah, I've got only a few trademarks. MadeMan, Gonzo Gardner, and Crypto Castle. Those are my very proud trademarks. Not a big IP guy, but hey, did you get any interesting questions on your Instagram? I want to see if there's anything that was funny.
I would have to check.
I always enjoy.
Where's the phone hiding? I don't think I have my phone on me. Oh, is it hiding?
Yeah, no, I don't want to throw you under the bus here, but I always love to see what people ask.
Let's take a look.
Here, let me look with you and see if there's anything good.
I was only 3 opinions on random tokens. What do you think of? Forget that. First psychedelic experience with both of you.
Okay. Why? We can scroll through all those real quick. Why don't we do the last 2 and end on the first one?
I mean, I don't know if you have opinion. These are 3 tokens.
Just ask questions and I'll give my answer.
Opinion on DeFi chain.
So, no. My view on blockchains is that there's probably not going to be more than 6 main blockchains. And I am so bullish on Ethereum right now, I can't even tell you. I saw you went long recently. Ethereum, I mean, obviously I built the first application on Ethereum, and it's been a huge part of my personal journey, but I also couldn't be more bullish on it. Bitcoin as well, I just hugely bullish. Solana is very interesting, but there's...
Does Solana give you EOS vibes?
What?
Does Solana give you EOS vibes?
Solana gives me lots of vibes, but it's got a community. The strongest community I've seen that isn't just crazy XRP tards.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's very unclear beyond that. It's really Bitcoin and Ethereum. Everyone's like, I want you to give me crypto advice. Buy Bitcoin and ETH, and then maybe keep 10% of your crypto investments for speculative shitcoining investing, whatever, or just allocating into projects that you think may be rocket ships, but like Bitcoin and ETH are all like guaranteed rocket ships. Like, so
if crypto succeeds, ETH is going to succeed. And same thing with Bitcoin,
but crypto's has succeeded.
Right.
We're at that point. So
if it keeps,
not investing in Bitcoin and ETH is like not having invested in Google or Apple or Domino's or one of these.
Google, Apple, or Domino's.
Domino's has been the best performing stock of the past 20 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's insane. Incredible business.
Says a lot about a culture, I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, or maybe not the best, but one of them is really, great. It's a great stock. Anyway, but Bitcoin and ETH, you're just stupid if you don't have at least 10% of your wealth in that. It's just a no-brainer. And then what's the next one?
Next one was, what do you think about AMP/Flexa?
Yeah, like I said, I don't have an opinion. Even on the cryptos I own that aren't Bitcoin and ETH, like, my opinions don't matter. It's all speculation. We don't know what's going to be successful. You need to develop a hypothesis around what is
DIY
interesting and be a part of it. That's the cool thing about crypto. You can help make these projects successful. They're mostly open source teams. Like, go and help these teams that realize their vision. If you're just making money off of crypto without actually being a part of its success,
it feels empty too.
It's vapid. It's meaningless. Like, who cares if you're a millionaire? Like, 10% of Americans are millionaires. Who cares if you're a billionaire? If you haven't done anything to earn that money, who cares? Go be a part of these projects that excite you.
I agree.
But still, don't put all of your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, but no, for me it was a huge difference. I used to just, trade discretionarily, like trade charts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was cynical about. Yeah.
It's pushing shit from right to left, and it's like meaningless. But we really changed maybe like two and a half years ago or so, where we started like actually working with the teams, getting to know the founders, getting involved, and like it's so much more fulfilling and long lasting. I can look at projects and say like, hey, I helped be part of this. I helped get this to where it is now, versus I hit buy and I hit sell, which is just The last question was first psychedelic experience.
With you. They added both of you. You're not escaping this one.
I think the first meaningful psychedelic experience was.
No, first.
I think it's the same one.
Okay.
I went straight to the finish line with that one. I went to ayahuasca.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I did an ayahuasca ceremony back in 2018.
I just sent one of my employees to Peru with a bunch of combat veterans to do ayahuasca for the first time as an employee benefit.
That's special. That's incredible. But I went right down the deep end with that one. Obviously, because a lot of people they try stuff like let's say mushrooms first, and then become edibles. There's a lot of other stuff to do. But I always said no because like I knew somebody who was a shaman, and I was like, no, I don't know about that. And then one time I just felt ready for it, and I think it's important that when you want to do an experience that you feel like comfortable with it, ready for it. And obviously something like ayahuasca is deeply personal, so I'm not going to go over it. But after that, I was very open to this industry because just like you said, it doesn't show you what you want; it shows you what you need, right? It made me especially ayahuasca, like you take a deep look inside, like a deep look inside the last like 8 hours. And afterwards, like on one hand, it shows you what you need to work on, but I think a lot of work is also kind of done under the hood, where like, afterwards you start noticing, like afterwards, I started noticing things have changed. I was like, of course I'm constantly working on making myself better, like working on these issues.
But your life is better.
Yeah, my life is better.
Yeah, and then that's where microdosing is a very interesting concept.
And I noticed it in a couple ways. One, like I journal, so like I used to journal like every single day. Now a little bit less, but I could just tell like in the tone, like if I read pre-Aya, post-Aya,
it gives you a new lease on life. It can really just open your eyes to a better version of yourself.
Yeah, much more, like you said, like uplifted, upbeat, like not as dark, you know. I think it filtered a lot of that out, and in fact, that was actually a visual I saw while I had it. Like, you know, I would
The darkness.
flowing through my subconscious. I saw like, you know, dark spots, whatnot, and I would literally clean it up, you know, like visually. It was weird. That was one of many things I saw, but and then secondly, also, and this is something that I would credit like all kinds of, you know, psychedelics with, is that at least for myself, I'm starting to try things consciously, and you know, let's say an MDA makes you feel very happy, upbeat, and everything, and then afterwards, I ask myself, hey, you know what? Like that's inside of you. How can you recreate that even without it, right? Like obviously, like you were able, like, you know, simple example. Like I'm somebody who's really introverted. Like at times, I can be on podcasts and stuff like that and talk for hours, but like personally, and you'll know me, you know, I can be more introverted, and you know, when you try things like that, you're like, wow, you know, like I'm sociable. I'm like, I can, you know, I feel comfortable. I don't care who's around. I don't care who sees me. You know, none of that stuff matters. So I'm like, hey, you know, if you are able to think like that and be like that, it's inside of you. So what changes can I make to my life, to my psyche, and so forth, to be more like that? So that's kind of like, that's been some of my early experiences. In fact, I think a lot of early experiences happened with you. So yeah.
Well, Rick Doblin from MAPS, who are the folks that are getting MDMA rescheduled and doing all the studies, and just great advocacy group and nonprofit, has this great line that psychedelic substances don't create psychedelic experiences. Psychedelic substances create human experiences brought on by the medicine. And that is the potential of these substances. The end game is not to get everyone tripping on mushrooms or Aya. It's to get people becoming the people that mushrooms and Aya enable you to become.
What was your first experience?
My experience, to keep it short, you know, I think I've been talking about this a lot recently, and I've got a podcast, What Makes a Man, if you're interested. But my first experience, I was 14 years old, really rough period of my life. I was depressed, 5 different psychiatric drugs, like suicidal ideation on a regular basis, getting kicked out of school, was arrested. Ate 3.5 grams of mushrooms, which is a full dose for an adult human. I was a scrawny, skinny boy, and tripped my balls off. And it was the most joyful, euphoric experience of my life. I was in so much pain. I had so much anger and resentment, and it was just, I became unburdened and let go. I achieved in that moment what I believed was nirvana. It was, you know, what I can now say, I was like an atheist at the time, but it was a godly experience.
Yeah.
And it was a truly a spiritual awakening. I wouldn't recognize it as such for several years, but afterwards I never had suicidal ideation again. My entire disposition changed, and then a year later I took the same dosage again, and I got this message from God, if you will, as people know it, saying you don't need these psychiatric drugs. I got off all 5 of them, and haven't had a depressive episode in 15 years. And so, you know, the profundity can't be understated, but every path of my journey, everywhere where my life has gone right has come from psychedelics. And it you know, I had this horrible imposter syndrome for years in crypto, and you know, and just being very aware of my privilege as a white, you know, educated middle class kid in America, where you know, people are forgiving, and they say, and they give you second chances, a way where even if my just skin color or gender or place I was born or my education was different, may not have been the case. And what I think mushrooms and psychedelics broadly truly helped me appreciate was my potential to be more than I was at that moment. Like, I was very, even long after becoming successful or wealthy, I still was stuck in this mental rut of just being a fuck up, being a mess up, being, and being lucky to an extent, but, really, it took me until a couple of years ago to realize, or a year ago even, to realize I still had low self-esteem, and it's given me the tools to, really just love myself better, but also have the courage to achieve potential, that latent potential that exists within all of us, and really unlock it and lean into it, and have a sense of knowingness in everything that I do that enables me to be successful in the sense that I defined earlier. Wealth is not what most people think it is. It's not. Money is stupid. Money is just something that you can have and can be useful if you're smart about it. But it's not necessary, and it should never be the goal. And so, my life is just so deeply filled with meaning and purpose and fulfillment, and just so much of that stems from my psychedelic experiences.
So it sounds like you're on the right path then. I mean, you're in the world.
I'm supercharged and charging ahead and overworked and killing myself, but in all the best ways.
Yeah, and that's something I always respect about you. So many times I actually just sent you a story recently how I think anytime we hung out, even in Miami, there might be 20 girls around, 1 a.m., we're sitting on our computers working.
Work comes first. There's always more good times. Like, you can always have a fun time, but you have to learn what your priorities are. And one thing, despite all of the debauchery, degeneracy, and fun times I have a capacity to always put my work first and do what needs to be done. And that's one thing people can't hold against me, despite all my vices, is that I'm dependable and I get it done, and that's all you can ask for at the end of the day.
Amazing, brother. Well, I'm really excited for what you're going to be building with Mystic Ventures and MadeMan, and this is just chapter one. I'm sure there's so much.
And speaking of debauchery, degeneracy, and impact, we got to go do things. And go check out Peace DAO. We're going to go to a fundraiser, and we're going to go help support some Ukrainian refugees, and then get a little bit of fun times on at Music Week. But that's not.
Thank you so much for being here, brother.
Thank you, my man.